The first thing I heard wasn't laughter. It wasn't music. It wasn't even her voice calling my name. It was a man's voice, low, unfamiliar, and far too comfortable inside the room of the woman I had just crossed 3 states to surprise. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My hand froze mid-air, just inches from knocking. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard it felt like it was trying to escape, like it already knew something I didn't want to accept. I stood there in the hallway of that quiet hotel, sunlight pouring through the large glass windows behind me, warming everything except the cold dread spreading through my chest. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the kind of love that gets tested when you least expect it, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to Only Kindness. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were standing where I stood? Because I didn't know what to do. Not yet. 3 days earlier, everything felt simple. My name is Zion Mirza, and I had always believed I was the kind of man who showed love through actions, not words. I wasn't poetic, I wasn't dramatic, but when I loved someone, I gave them everything steady, everything real. And for the past 2 years, that someone had been Mare Ashfaq. Mare wasn't loud, but she filled every room she walked into. She had this quiet confidence, the kind that didn't need validation. She worked hard, dreamed big, and carried herself like someone who had built her own world piece by piece. When she got selected for a week-long business training in another city, I was proud of her. Genuinely proud, but I also missed her. More than I expected. We had talked every night, our calls filled with small details about her days, about the workshops, the people she met, the long hours. She sounded tired, but happy. I remember thinking how much I wanted to see that smile again in person instead of through a screen. So I made a decision that felt romantic in my head. I took 2 days off work. I filled my bike's tank before sunrise, packed light, and started riding. The highway stretched endlessly ahead of me, bathed in soft morning light. Trucks roared past, the wind pressed against my chest, and the sun climbed slowly into the sky. It felt like a journey driven by love, by anticipation. Every mile I covered, I imagined her reaction. The way her eyes would widen, the way she'd laugh in disbelief, maybe even tear up a little. I imagined her running into my arms in that hotel lobby, people turning to look as we held each other like we hadn't in weeks. I held onto that image the entire ride. 8 hours, then 9, then 10. My body ached, my hands were numb, but my heart kept me going. By the time I reached the city, it was early afternoon. The streets were alive with movement, sunlight reflecting off glass buildings, people rushing through their routines. I checked into a nearby hotel just to freshen up, changed my shirt, splashed water on my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired, but I also looked hopeful. I didn't call her, I didn't text, I wanted it to be perfect. I picked up a small box of her favorite sweets from a nearby shop. It wasn't much, but it felt personal. Something that said I had been thinking of her, even in the middle of everything. The hotel she was staying at wasn't far. I remember walking through those polished floors, the faint scent of fresh flowers in the air, the quiet hum of conversations around me. Everything felt normal, peaceful, like the world had no idea it was about to shift for me. I got her room number from the front desk, saying I was family. And then I stood outside her door. Room 407. My heart pounded as I adjusted my grip on the small box. I smiled to myself, imagining her surprise just seconds away. And then I heard it. That voice. A man's voice. Calm, close, inside her room. At first, my mind refused to process it. It tried to rationalize, to protect me. Maybe it was a colleague. Maybe a meeting. Maybe the TV. But then I heard her voice. Mare's voice. Soft, emotional, different. And suddenly, everything inside me began to shake. I leaned closer to the door without realizing it, my breath shallow, my thoughts spiraling. I didn't want to eavesdrop. I wasn't that kind of person. But something about the tone, about the weight in her voice, pulled me in like gravity. I couldn't walk away. I heard her say something I couldn't fully catch, her voice breaking slightly. And then the man responded, gently, as if he had every right to comfort her. That's when the doubt hit me. Not as a thought, but as a force, a heavy, crushing force that made my chest tighten and my vision blur. I thought about all the late nights she said she was working. The times her calls felt rushed. The slight distance in her voice I had ignored because I trusted her. I thought about the miles I had ridden just to be here. And suddenly, the box of sweets in my hand felt ridiculous. Like I had misunderstood everything. Like I had been living in a version of reality that didn't exist. My hand dropped slowly to my side. I wanted to knock. I wanted to barge in. I wanted answers. But fear held me still. Fear of what I might see. Fear of what I might lose in that one moment. Minutes passed. Or maybe seconds. I couldn't tell anymore. And then something unexpected happened. The door opened. Not wide. Just enough for me to see inside. And everything I thought I understood, shattered. The man inside wasn't who I expected. He wasn't relaxed. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't close to her in the way my fears had imagined. He was older. Mid-50s maybe. His face was serious, lined with concern. And Mare, she was sitting on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling, her eyes red from crying. She looked broken, not guilty, broken. Our eyes met, and in that instant, I saw shock wash over her face. Not fear, not panic, relief. Zion, she whispered, barely audible, as if she couldn't believe I was real. Everything inside me froze again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was confusion. The man turned, noticing me, and stepped aside without a word. There was something respectful in the way he moved, as if he understood that whatever this moment was, it belonged to us. I stepped inside slowly, my heart still racing, my mind trying to catch up with reality. The room was filled with daylight, curtains drawn open, the city visible beyond the glass. Everything looked normal, except for her. I set the box down on the table without thinking. What's going on? I finally managed to ask, my voice quieter than I expected. She looked at me, and I saw it then. Not just tears, pain, the kind that doesn't come from betrayal, but from something deeper. Something heavier. I didn't tell you, she began, her voice fragile. I didn't know how. Every word felt like it carried weight. The man spoke then, his tone calm. He introduced himself as Dr. Hamad, a consultant connected to her company's health program. His presence suddenly made sense in a way my panic hadn't allowed before. And then the truth came out. Not all at once, but slowly, piece by piece. Mare hadn't just been attending business training. She had been going through medical evaluations, tests, consultations, because for months, she had been feeling unwell, weak, tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. And she hadn't told me. Not because she didn't trust me, but because she was scared. Scared of worrying me, scared of what it might mean, scared of making it real. The voices I had heard weren't secrets of betrayal. They were conversations about her health, about uncertainty, about fear, about a future she didn't know how to face. I felt something inside me collapse. Not from heartbreak, but from the realization of how quickly I had doubted her. How easily my mind had turned love into suspicion. I walked closer to her, each step heavier than the last. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, not with anger, but with something softer. Something hurt. She looked down, tears slipping silently down her face. I didn't want you to see me like this, she whispered. I didn't want to be a burden. That word hit me harder than anything else. A burden, as if the woman I had ridden across states for could ever be that. I sat beside her, gently taking her trembling hands into mine. You think loving you has conditions? I said quietly. You think I'd only show up when things are easy? She didn't answer, but her grip tightened, and in that moment, everything became clear. Love isn't tested in perfect moments. It's tested in the ones that break you open. The ones that force you to choose between fear and trust. Between doubt and understanding. Between walking away and staying. The hours that followed felt like a different world. We talked, really talked, about everything she had been holding in. About the tests, the uncertainty, the nights she had cried alone in that same room. I stayed. I didn't leave her side. Not for a second. The sunlight shifted across the room as the day moved on, casting long shadows that slowly faded into the soft glow of evening. And in that time, something inside us changed. Not in a dramatic way, but in a real one. We became more honest, more vulnerable, more connected. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something. If this moment touched your heart even a little, if it made you think about someone you love, someone you might have misunderstood or taken for granted, take a second to like this video, share it, and let someone else feel what you're feeling right now. And subscribe to Only Kindness for more stories that remind us what truly matters. And please, before the ending, I want you to write one word in the comments. Trust, if you believe love should always choose understanding over doubt. Because I almost lost something important that day. Not because of what was happening inside that room, but because of what was happening inside me. Weeks later, we returned home together. The tests continued, The answers came slowly, but we faced them side by side. There were hard days, days filled with fear, but there were also moments of quiet strength, of laughter, of hope. And every time I think back to that hallway, to that moment outside room 407, I don't remember the fear anymore. I remember the choice to stay, the choice to listen, the choice to trust, because sometimes, the voices that shake you the most, aren't breaking your world. They're revealing the truth you need to grow into something stronger. And in the end, that's what love really is.